Good day, everyone. I hope you all had a great Sunday. My Sunday was as follows. Sunday school in the morning, I was substituting. Pretty good discussion in there with the kids. Um, and then service, pastor wasn't there. We had one of the regional people from the Christian Missionary Alliance talking us kind of about the idea was whose signature is the most prevalent on your heart was the quote he gave. Just talked about how we should try to make sure God is the most important thing there, and yeah, basically, I don't know. I'm a little tired, so I can't really give you much better than that. And then we had lunch. We went to the Olive Garden to celebrate my mom's birthday a few days after my mom's birthday. Her choice, Olive Garden, so we did that. Pretty good, a little better than normal. They had the all you can eat or the never ending pasta bowl, and they had a new option where you could put ravioli in it, cheese ravioli in it, and so I went ahead and did that with Alfredo sauce, and it was actually pretty good. I actually got seconds and ate those as well. Came home for a short time after swinging by. Um, I went to Staples and to Lowe's to look at a couple of things to give me more ideas for different options I could try to implement and like what kind of costs that could entail if I ever actually do it. Pull the trigger and figure it out. But yeah, and then I came back for a very short time and then had to go out to Think Orange. Did that. Went pretty good, I think, for the most part. And then after that, straight out to the highlight of the night, or at least it should have been. Mafia. A friend had a Mafia party at their house, and a whole bunch of people showed up. Jesse came by, and he met me at our church, and we drove down together in my car. We brought my car because I wasn't sure if we'd have enough parking space. And so I get a smaller car, it's easier to squeeze it into spaces and stuff. Turns out we could have been fine. He could have driven his car. It didn't really matter. But he got a chance to ride in my car that way. And we got there. They had just started a game, maybe just a little bit earlier. They were still on the first day cycle after the first night. And so it dragged for quite a while. But there was a fool in the game, and so ultimately what happened was the fool wound up being lynched, and the game ended prematurely. We got lucky. We didn't have to wait forever. They started another game. More and more and more and more and more people. And it came out to be about 30 people in this game. One of the biggest games we've had, and definitely one of the longest games we've had. And unfortunately, I was eliminated on like the third night. I was told Batman did it. Jesse was actually Mafia, but for some reason he pointed me in the direction of a couple of Mafia that if I had survived longer, I could have brought to people's notice. The frustrating thing about tonight was there was a whole bunch of people that didn't know quite as much what they were doing as far as strategizing and thinking things through the way that a lot of us who really love this game do. And so they were able to say, like, this is a big threat player, this is someone who knows what they're doing, and they'll get you out. But then you have to sit and watch, and you have to watch because they got out all the big name players, and all you can do is watch all these mistakes being made and watch all these newer players not catching the mistakes, not seeing through certain things, and then the game just takes so much longer because they're missing all these subtle things that more experienced players will catch on to and would speed the game along. So it just dragged and dragged. I was eliminated, like I said, second or third night. I literally waited probably almost 2 hours for the game to end. I started out in town, and it wound up being a Mafia win. But at that point, I didn't even really care. I just wanted it to end. We didn't have enough space, I guess, to start a second game, even though a lot of us wanted to. So we waited and waited and waited. Game number, and I was town, by the way. Game number 3. This one sucked. It was actually pretty fast. A lot of people left after that super long game, and we down to like 12, 15 people, much smaller. And so I am the arsonist, as it turns out. Jesse is sitting right next to me. He's the gunsmith. And so what happens is everyone's asleep. Mafia's looking around, figuring out who everyone is, who they're going to kill. And I'm going like this, the A. The A. I am the arsonist. And I moved my fingers. I went to like the flames or whatever. And I did this. One of my fingers went crack. And the person sitting next to me took that as me opening my mouth and trying to communicate with the other Mafia, which was not what I would do because I wasn't with the other Mafia. I was an arsonist, meaning that I wouldn't have been talking with anyone else. And so I tried to convince her that it was just she was hearing something or whatever. But the only problem is she was a cop. And so her and the other cop, because she heard this, investigated me and found me out to be guilty because I was the arsonist. And then they pulled the best strategy they could have, and they used the argument against me to convince everyone else. They're pushing for it. Is that who's the most obvious person to kill the person who was killed first, which was Jesse. Jesse made it all the way to the end and helped the Mafia win the first game. And so as a result, he was a huge threat apparently to the Mafia this round. And so the Mafia decided they would kill Jesse, which unfortunately, who is number one suspect when Jesse is killed first round? The guy who brought him. Me. So I did my best. I explained that I know that going in. If Jesse were to die, I would be the first suspect, so I would never take Jesse out. And that argument might have held some weight with one of the people who was accusing me, except that she was the other cop, and they both knew I was guilty, so there was no change in their mind. No getting the waiver at all. And everyone else was like, that argument makes a lot of sense. And I'm like, it makes the opposite of a lot of sense. But almost everyone voted. I think it was almost unanimous, but not unanimous. Everyone votes me out first day. Gone. Me and Jesse are out. The first thing Jesse said was, whoop, get to go home early. But we wound up sitting through watching the rest of the game. Getting clear that another game wasn't going to start. It was late enough anyways. But yeah. So what wound up happening is the game whittled down, and I started on Mafia's side as the arsonist, and what had wound up happening was there was myself, the arsonist, there was a sleeper agent, which we didn't know about. Nobody really knew he was a sleeper agent. And then we had a framer and 2 Yakuzas. And so what wound up happening was numbers were getting smaller. They saw an opportunity, so they both struck. Both Yakuza struck. And they wiped themselves out. Now, what would have made sense is there were 2 intact cops, which when they outed me, in my mind, in Jesse's mind, we both saw it clean as day. They're the cops. They're the 2 cops. And the Mafia should have jumped on that and tried to take one out. Well, they did. They just chose the wrong one. And the nurse saved her. And so then later the Yakuza strikes, and what I think they should have done was they should have struck and hit both cops, and then the cops could keep claiming to be cops, keep playing like cops, even though they're actually Mafia that no one knows about. And instead, they killed one of the cops, turned the other one, and also turned a random other person. So when one cop was taken out, that made the second cop an obvious choice and probably was Yakuza. They might have figured out that both cops were Yakuza if they'd done that, but they didn't do it, so we can never know. And the other guy. And then, I don't know what happened exactly, details kind of faded there. But what ultimately wound up happening is they took a town out. The sleeper agent, which was a sleeper agent we didn't know about, was part of the count. And so suddenly Mafia wins. So I got to play in 2 games, but barely any of either of those games. And I went 1-1 based on my teaming that I was on. Town lost and then Mafia won. And I remember the first game. I think Mafia won that one too. So it was kind of like a Mafia. I think it was a Mafia clean sweep of that. But I've been talking long enough, so tomorrow I gotta work 10:30 to 5:30 at Planet Smoothie. Hopefully I'll hear something one way or the other with GameStop. With the library would be great too. But yeah, that's it. So good night everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow.